Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
I'm excited to be here.
Today we're going to be delving into the fascinating world of power dynamics
Oh, yeah.
and the subtle art of influence.
It's going to be good.
We've got some really interesting sources lined up for this one.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at excerpts from the book, The 48 Laws of Power.
I love that book.
Me too. It's like a playbook for understanding how the world really works.
Right.
And we're going to be weaving in some captivating historical biographies as well.
Sounds fascinating.
So get ready for some serious aha moments as we unlock the secrets of influence throughout history
All right.
and see how they apply to you today.
I'm ready.
The first concept that really jumped out at me was the overbearing predecessor.
Yeah.
It seems like so many powerful figures have had to grapple with the legacies of those who came before them.
It's true. They really have. This challenge of how to establish a distinct identity, even when you're following in giant footsteps.
Right, like how do you make your mark when you're constantly being compared to someone who came before you?
Exactly. And the book dives into some amazing historical examples.
Oh, I love that. Let's hear it.
Oh, one of the most classic examples is Alexander the Great.
Oh yeah, Alexander the Great.
Ah,
Everyone knows his name.
but he wasn't just trying to conquer Persia.
Right. He was driven to surpass his own father, Philip II of Macedon.
Exactly. He wanted to create his own legacy, not just live in his father's shadow.
It's like that famous story of the Gordian knot.
Oh, yeah. What a classic.
Instead of painstakingly untying it, like everyone expected, he just slices it in half with his sword.
What a power move.
Talk about making a statement.
Right. It was a symbolic act declaring a new era with Alexander in charge.
It's like he was saying, I'm not going to play by the old rules. I'm going to make my own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this need to differentiate oneself goes beyond just grand gestures.
Okay, I'm listening.
Look at Louis XIV of France.
The Sun King.
He rejected the traditional Louvre palace and built Versailles.
Versailles. Oh, yeah, that place is incredible.
It's a palace so grand and opulent that it became a symbol of his absolute power.
It was basically in the middle of nowhere back then, right?
That was the whole point.
Really?
By building Versailles away from the established seat of power, Louis XIV created his own center of gravity.
Oh, I see. So it was a deliberate power play.
Exactly. He was essentially saying, the world revolves around me now.
I love it. It's like he was using architecture and location to reinforce his authority.
Precisely. And it's a strategy that's still relevant today.
How so?
Think about branding and marketing.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Creating a distinct identity is crucial for any business or individual who wants to stand out from the crowd.
It's about creating your own Versailles in a way.
Exactly. You want to create something unique and memorable that sets you apart from the competition.
So it's not just about breaking free from a predecessor's shadow. It's about strategically creating your own symbols of power.
Absolutely. And that's what Louis XIV did so brilliantly with Versailles.
So what happens when someone's presence is actually disruptive to the power dynamic?
That's where things get really interesting.
The book talks about this concept called the art of banishment, which sounds pretty intense.
It does sound intense, right? But it's not as literal as it might seem.
Okay, I'm curious. Tell me more.
It takes us back to ancient Athens and their practice of ostracism.
Oh, yeah, ostracism. I remember learning about that in history class. It seemed pretty brutal.
It was a system where citizens could vote to banish individuals deemed dangerous to the state.
So it's like a way to get rid of people who were seen as a threat to the status quo.
Precisely. And the book uses some fascinating examples to illustrate this concept.
Okay, give me the details.
One example that really stands out is the story of Aristides, the Just.
Aristides the Just. Wasn't he one of the heroes who defeated the Persians?
He was. But despite his heroism, he was eventually ostracized.
Really? Why? What happened?
Well, despite his nickname, the Just, Aristides developed a reputation for arrogance.
Oh, so even though he was considered a just man, his pride ultimately led to his downfall?
Exactly. And the Athenian people feared that his arrogance would disrupt the balance of power.
I see. So it's not always about actual wrongdoing. It's about how your actions are perceived.
Exactly. And the book highlights another Athenian general, Themistocles.
Themistocles.
Yeah.
Wasn't he the one who masterminded the victory at Salamis?
He was.
Ah.
But he too was ostracized despite his military brilliance.
Okay, I'm seeing a pattern here. It seems like even heroes weren't immune to the power of banishment.
That's right. Even those who had achieved great things could be cast out if they were perceived as a threat to the stability of the state.
It's a reminder that power is a fickle thing.
It is. And while we don't practice ostracism in the same way today, The principle of the art of banishment is still very relevant.
How so?
It's about recognizing those individuals in a group setting whose behavior is disruptive or toxic.
Oh yeah, I think we've all encountered those people.
Right. It's like their presence just throws everything off balance.
Exactly. So what do we do about it?
Well, it's not about literally banishing people,
Of course not.
but it's about taking steps to neutralize their influence.
I see. So it could be anything from providing feedback to reassigning them to a different role, or even in extreme cases, removing them from the group altogether.
Exactly. It's about protecting the overall well-being of the group and preventing one person's negativity from spreading.
Okay, that's a really powerful application of this concept. It's making me rethink how I handle those tricky interpersonal dynamics.
It's definitely something to be aware of.
This deep dive is already full of surprises.
And we're just getting started. The next concept we're going to delve into is unlocking the stranger's heart.
Ooh, that sounds a lot less intimidating than banishment.
Yeah.
I'm all about unlocking hearts.
Me too. And I think this law highlights a really crucial point about influence.
Okay, tell me more.
It's not about manipulating everyone with the same tactics.
Right.
It's about understanding individual psychology and tailoring your approach accordingly.
So it's about recognizing that everyone is different and responds to different kinds of persuasion.
Exactly. And the book warns against ignoring this crucial factor.
Why? What happens if you ignore it?
Well, if you treat everyone the same, you risk making them feel resentful.
That makes sense. People don't like to feel like they're just cogs in a machine.
Exactly. They want to feel seen and understood.
So how do we unlock those hearts and minds? How do we tailor our approach to each individual?
The book gives some amazing historical examples to illustrate this principle.
I love a good historical example. Let's hear it.
Well, one that really stands out is the story of Zhuge Liang.
Zhuge Liang, who was that?
He was a brilliant Chinese strategist,
Okay.
and he needed to prevent an enemy general from joining forces with his rival.
Oh, that's a tricky situation.
Yeah.
So what did he do? Did he try to bribe the general? Threaten him?
He did something much more clever. He understood that this particular general was a very proud man.
So he played to the general's ego.
Exactly. Instead of attacking the rival directly, he planted seeds of doubt and jealousy, suggesting that the rival was after the general's wife.
Wow, that's some next-level psychological warfare.
It was, and it worked. The general, blinded by jealousy, switched sides.
So it's not always about brute force or logic. It's about understanding what motivates people and using that knowledge strategically.
Precisely. You have to know what makes people tick, what their fears and desires are.
And then you can tailor your message to resonate with them on a deeper level.
Exactly. It's about finding those emotional hooks that will really get their attention.
I'm starting to see how powerful this could be both in personal and professional settings.
Absolutely. Whether you're trying to win over a client, negotiate a deal, or even just persuade your partner to try a new restaurant.
Understanding individual psychology is key.
It's all about unlocking those hearts and minds.
Okay, this next concept sounds a bit counterintuitive. The allure of surrender.
Ah, yes. This one always raises eyebrows.
Why would anyone surrender in a game of power? It seems like the opposite of what you'd want to do.
It does seem counterintuitive, right?
Right.
But this law is all about recognizing that sometimes appearing to yield can actually be the most effective way to gain the upper hand.
Okay, I'm definitely curious to hear more about this. What kind of situations call for strategic surrender?
The book uses a fascinating example from 19th century Japan.
Okay.
When faced with the growing power of the West, they didn't resist westernization outright.
Right, I remember reading about that period. Japan was incredibly isolated for centuries.
They were. But when they were forced to open their doors to the West, they did something unexpected.
What did they do?
They adopted a strategy of calculated surrender.
What do you mean?
They outwardly conformed to Western customs while inwardly preserving their own culture and values.
So it's like they were playing a long game.
Exactly. They knew they couldn't defeat the West militarily at that point,
Right.
so they chose to learn from them, adapt, and ultimately emerge as a major power in their own right.
Wow. That's a pretty amazing example of how strategic surrender can actually lead to greater strength in the long run.
It's about choosing your battles wisely and knowing when to yield in order to achieve your larger goals.
So it's not about weakness, it's about strategic maneuvering.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that sometimes the best way to win is to appear to lose.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. I've always been someone who likes to stand my ground and fight for what I believe in.
I understand.
But I'm starting to see how yielding can be a powerful tool.
It's definitely something to consider.
This deep dive is already full of surprises.
And we're just getting warmed up. There's so much more to explore.
Can't wait.
Stay tuned.
We'll be back after the break with even more fascinating insights into the world of power dynamics.
Okay, sounds good. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
See you soon.
All right.
All right.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to our deep dive into power dynamics.
It's getting juicy.
Right. And we're about to get even deeper into the subtle art of influence.
I'm ready for it.
Me too. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about the allure of surrender.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And how sometimes appearing to yield can actually be the most effective way to gain the upper hand.
It's counterintuitive but powerful.
So powerful. Now, I'm curious about this next concept, unlocking the stranger's heart.
Yeah.
This one sounds a lot less intimidating than some of the others we've discussed.
It does. Yeah.
I'm all about unlocking hearts.
Me too. And I think this law highlights a really important point about influence.
What's that?
Effective influence is not about manipulating everyone with the same tactics.
Right.
It's about understanding individual psychology and tailoring your approach accordingly.
So it's about recognizing that everyone is different and responds to different kinds of persuasion.
Exactly. It's like a puzzle. You have to figure out what makes each person tick.
And then find the right key to unlock their heart or mind.
Precisely. The book warns against ignoring this crucial factor.
What happens if you ignore it?
You risk alienating people.
Right. If you treat everyone the same, they're going to feel like you don't really see them as individuals.
Yeah, exactly. They want to feel understood.
Okay, so how do we unlock those hearts and minds? How do we tailor our approach to each individual? The book gives us some fascinating historical examples to illustrate this principle.
Oh, I love a good historical example.
Let's hear it.
One that stands out is the story of Zhuge Liang.
Okay, remind me who he was again.
He was a brilliant Chinese strategist.
Right. Right.
And he was facing a tricky situation.
Oh, what was it?
He needed to prevent an enemy general from joining forces with his rival.
Okay, that sounds like a tough one. What did he do? Did he try to bribe the general?
Nope.
Threaten him?
He did something much more clever. Yeah. He understood that this particular general was a very proud man,
Okay.
easily swayed by appeals to his ego and reputation.
So he played to the general's vanity.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Instead of attacking the rival directly, he planted seeds of doubt and jealousy.
Oh, how did he do that?
He suggested that the rival was after the general's wife.
Oh, wow, that's cold. But I guess all's fair in love and war, right?
Well, it worked. The general, blinded by jealousy, switched sides.
So it's not always about brute force or logic. It's about understanding what motivates people and using that knowledge strategically. Precisely. You have to know what makes people tick, what their fears and desires are.
And then you can tailor your message to resonate with them on a deeper level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about finding those emotional hooks that will really get their attention.
I'm starting to see how powerful this could be both in personal and professional settings.
Absolutely. Whether you're trying to win over a client, negotiate a deal, or even just convince your roommate to do the dishes.
Understanding individual psychology is key.
It's all about unlocking those hearts and minds.
This next concept sounds a bit counterintuitive. The allure of surrender.
Ah, yes. This one always gets people thinking.
Why would anyone surrender in a game of power? It seems like the opposite of what you'd want to do.
I know. It's a bit of a mind bender, right?
Right.
But this law is all about recognizing that sometimes appearing to yield can be the most effective way to gain the upper hand.
I'm still wrapping my head around that one. What kind of situations call for strategic surrender?
Well, the book gives a fascinating example from 19th century Japan.
Okay, Japan. This is the period when they were opening up to the world after centuries of isolation, right?
Exactly. A major turning point for them.
And they didn't exactly embrace westernization with open arms, did they?
They didn't, but instead of resisting outright, they adopted a strategy of calculated surrender.
What do you mean by that?
They outwardly conformed to Western customs while inwardly preserving their own culture and values.
So they were playing a long game.
Exactly. They knew they couldn't defeat the West militarily at that point.
Right.
So they chose to learn from them, adapt, and ultimately emerge as a major power in their own right.
That's amazing. So it's like they used this period of surrender to secretly gain strength.
That's a great way to put it. It's about choosing your battles wisely and knowing when to yield in order to achieve your larger goals.
So it's not about weakness, it's about strategic maneuvering.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that sometimes the best way to win is to appear to lose.
That's deep. I'm starting to see how yielding can be a powerful tool.
It definitely is.
This deep dive is full of surprises.
And we're just scratching the surface. There's so much more to explore.
Okay, give me another one.
How about money and power?
Ooh, money and power. That's a topic that's always relevant.
It really is. And the book argues that money beyond its practical value is deeply psychologically charged.
Okay. I can see that money can definitely evoke a lot of emotions. Security, anxiety, envy.
Exactly. It's wrapped up in all sorts of social and psychological dynamics.
So it's not just about how much money you have, but how you use it.
Precisely. And the book highlights the importance of strategic generosity.
Strategic generosity, what does that mean?
It's about understanding the power of giving not just out of kindness, but as a calculated move to enhance your influence.
So you're saying there's a strategic element to giving.
Absolutely.
It's not just about being nice.
It can be,
Yeah.
but it's also about creating a sense of obligation and indebtedness.
Ah, I see. So when you give strategically, you're essentially making people feel beholden to you.
Exactly. And that can be a very powerful tool.
Can you give me an example of how this works?
Sure. Imagine you're trying to win over a potential ally or build a stronger relationship with a colleague.
Okay.
Instead of showering them with lavish gifts, you might offer them a small but meaningful gesture.
Like what?
A helpful introduction, a valuable piece of advice, a favor that costs you little but means a lot to them.
Ah, I get it. So it's about finding those small but impactful ways to show your generosity.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that strategic generosity is not about being reckless with your money.
Right.
It's about understanding the value of each dollar and using it wisely to enhance your influence and achieve your goals.
Okay. I'm starting to see how money can be more than just a means of exchange. It's like a strategic tool for building relationships and influencing outcomes.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the psychology of money.
This is making me rethink my entire approach to finances.
That's great. It's all about being more strategic.
But before I go on a strategic spending spree,
Mm-hmm.
are there any downsides to using money to influence people?
Of course. There are always potential pitfalls.
Like,
Well, one thing to avoid is being perceived as a miser, as someone who is overly tight-fisted.
that makes sense. Nobody wants to be seen as a Scrooge.
Exactly. It can damage your reputation and make people less likely to trust you.
So how do you find the right balance between generosity and not being taken advantage of?
It's about being discerning and understanding the context of the situation.
Okay.
Think about your goals and who you're trying to influence.
Right. So if you're trying to impress a potential client, you might be more generous than you would be with a casual acquaintance.
Exactly. It's about being strategic and using your resources wisely.
This is some seriously insightful stuff. It's like we're getting a master class in the psychology of money and power.
That's the goal, to give you a deeper understanding of these complex dynamics.
I completely agree.
Mhm.
Okay, what's next on our agenda for mastering the art of influence?
Let's delve into the intriguing world of the mirror effect.
The mirror effect. What's that all about?
It's about how mirroring other people's behavior can be used to influence their perceptions and actions.
Interesting. So you're saying if I mimic someone's behavior, they'll be more likely to like me or agree with me.
It can be that simple sometimes, but there's more to it than just mimicry.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
The book outlines several different types of mirror effects that can be used strategically.
Give me some examples.
Well, one fascinating example is the neutralizing effect.
The neutralizing effect.
What's that? It's where you mirror someone's negative behavior to make them realize the impact of their actions.
Oh, so you're giving them a taste of their own medicine.
Exactly. The book gives a great example from a fable by the Indian philosopher Pilpay.
No, I'm listening.
It tells the story of two friends, one of whom cheats the other out of a large quantity of iron.
Now, how do you cheat someone out of iron? That's not exactly like slipping a 20 out of their wallet.
Well, this friend came up with a rather outlandish excuse. He claimed that a rat had eaten the iron.
A rat ate the iron. Come on.
I know, right? But the cheated friend, instead of confronting his friend, directly decided to teach him a lesson using the neutralizing effect.
Okay, how did he do that?
He kidnapped his friend's son
He kidnapped his son.
and then pretended to have seen an owl carrying off a child.
Wow, that escalated quickly.
It did. When his friend protested that an owl couldn't possibly carry a child, he simply reminded him of his own claim about the rat eating 100 tons of iron.
Oh, snap. That's
Yep.
brilliant. He used his friend's own absurd logic against him.
Exactly. And it worked. The friend, realizing he'd been completely outmaneuvered, confessed to the cheat and returned the iron.
So it's not just about mirroring behavior. It's about mirroring their logic, their thought process.
Precisely. It's about making them see the flaws in their own thinking by reflecting their behavior back at them.
Okay, I'm starting to see how powerful this could be. But how can we apply this neutralizing effect in more everyday situations?
Well, let's say you're dealing with a colleague who's constantly interrupting you in meetings.
Oh, I've definitely been there.
Right. Instead of getting into a heated confrontation, you could try subtly interrupting them in the same way.
Make them experience the frustration they're causing.
Exactly. And the book argues that this can be far more effective than simply lecturing them about their behavior.
It's like that saying, actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. And the neutralizing effect is all about using mirrored action to create a powerful learning experience.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on dealing with difficult people.
Good. I hope it's helpful.
It is. What other fascinating mirror effects are there? I'm ready for more.
Okay, how about the seducer's mirror?
The seducer's mirror. Ooh, that sounds intriguing. And maybe a little dangerous.
It can be, but it's not always about romantic seduction.
Okay, so what's it about?
It's about mirroring someone's tastes and values to create a sense of deep connection and rapport.
Ah, so you're basically making them feel like you're their soulmate.
In a way, yes. But again, it's not about being fake or manipulative.
Okay.
It's about finding genuine points of connection and amplifying them.
I see. So you're highlighting the things you have in common.
Exactly. And the book gives a fascinating example from the life of Marie Mancini.
Marie Mancini. Who was she?
She was the mistress of the young king, Louis IV.
Oh, the Sun King.
The one and only. And she was considered the love of his life.
Really? So she must have been quite a woman.
She was. And she achieved that status through masterful use of the seducer's mirror.
Tell me more.
Well, she understood that the young king craved genuine affection and admiration,
Good.
something he wasn't getting from the sycophants and schemers surrounding him.
So she gave him what he needed.
Exactly. She mirrored his interests, his passions, his desires.
She made him feel seen and understood.
And that created an incredibly powerful bond between them.
Wow. So it's not just about flattery. It's about genuinely connecting with someone on their level.
Precisely. The seducer's mirror is all about creating that sense of deep connection.
Okay. I can see how this applies to all sorts of relationships, not just romantic ones.
Absolutely. Whether you're trying to build rapport with a potential client or make new friends.
Taking the time to understand their interests and mirroring those back to them can create a powerful sense of connection.
It's all about finding that common ground.
This is incredible. It's like we're getting a crash course in the psychology of human connection.
That's a great way to put it.
Are there any other mirror effects we should know about?
Of course. There are a few more.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, the book also talks about the moral effect.
The moral effect?
Which, like, the neutralizing effect involves mirroring and negative behavior.
Okay.
But the goal here is different.
How so?
It's less about outsmarting someone and more about teaching them a valuable lesson.
I see. So it's a more benevolent form of mirroring.
Exactly. You're trying to help them see the error of their ways.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you have a friend who's constantly complaining about their job, but they never seem to do anything to change their situation.
Yeah, we all have that friend.
Right. You could try mirroring their negativity, complaining about your own life in a similar way.
So you're basically showing them how annoying they're being.
That's one way to put it. But the hope is that they'll realize how draining their negativity is, both for themselves and for others.
It's like you're holding up a mirror to their negativity, making them confront their own behavior.
Precisely. And the book argues that this can be a powerful tool for promoting self-awareness and hopefully behavioral change.
Okay, that's definitely something I'm going to try. It's a much more subtle and strategic approach than directly confronting someone about their negativity.
It can be.
What other mirror effects are hiding in these pages?
Okay, how about the shadow?
The shadow. Now, that sounds a bit ominous. What makes it different from the other mirror effects?
Well, the shadow is a more manipulative and potentially dangerous version of the neutralizing effect.
Okay, so we're getting into some dark territory here.
We are. The shadow is less about teaching someone a lesson and more about subtly undermining their power and influence.
So it's more about revenge than redemption.
It can be. The book uses the example of Ivan the Terrible.
Oh, Ivan the Terrible. Now that's a name that strikes fear into the heart.
He was a master of using the shadow to control and manipulate those around him.
Okay, tell me more. How did he do it?
He would often mirror the behavior of those who had wronged him,
Okay.
turning their actions back on them in a way that was both humiliating and disempowering.
So he was basically using mirroring as a form of psychological warfare.
Exactly. When the boyars, the Russian nobles, challenged his authority, he responded by placing a powerless figurehead on the throne.
Oh, that's cold.
Yeah.
So he was mocking their attempts to control him.
Precisely. He was a master of psychological manipulation.
It sounds like the shadow is a very powerful, but also very dangerous technique.
It is. And the book cautions against its overuse.
Why?
Because creating a climate of fear and resentment can ultimately backfire.
Right. If you push people too far, they'll eventually rebel.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
Okay, I'm definitely getting that message loud and clear. It's a reminder that power used unethically can ultimately lead to your downfall.
A very important lesson.
This deep dive has taken us on a wild ride through the world of power dynamics.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. From overbearing predecessors to the art of banishment, from the allure of surrender to the power of controlled timing, from the strategy of the crown to these fascinating and sometimes unsettling mirror effects.
It's been a whirlwind tour.
It has. And I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, but in a good way. Like my mind has been stretched and expanded.
I think that's a natural reaction. The key takeaway is that power is not some fixed entity.
Right.
It's fluid and dynamic, constantly being negotiated and redefined.
So it's not about who has the most power, but about who can most effectively wield it.
Exactly. And the strategies and principles we've discussed today offer a glimpse into the art of wielding power effectively.
This deep dive is opening my eyes to all sorts of subtle power plays that are happening all around us.
That's the point, to make you more aware of these dynamics.
I feel like I'm starting to see the Matrix.
That's a good analogy.
It is, right.
It is. The world is full of hidden patterns and influences.
Okay, so we've talked about boldness, playing dumb, the art of the courtier, and these fascinating mirror effects. It seems like we're really focusing on mastering the psychological aspects of power.
We are, because ultimately power is about influence. And influence is all about understanding human psychology.
So it's not just about brute force or authority, it's about understanding how to persuade and motivate people.
Exactly. It's about winning hearts and minds.
This deep dive is officially blowing my mind. What other fascinating insights into power dynamics do we have time for today?
Let's talk about a concept that might seem a little sneaky at first. Playing a sucker to catch a sucker.
Playing a sucker to catch a sucker. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
I know, right? It seems counterintuitive.
Why would anyone intentionally play dumb in a game of power?
Well, this law is all about understanding the power of playing dumb. It taps into a fundamental human weakness, our vanity.
Oh, I see. Everyone likes to think they're the smartest person in the room.
Exactly. And that's where the power lies. By making your opponent feel intelligent, even superior to you, you disarm their suspicions.
Ah, so it's like a form of reverse psychology.
It is. You're lulling them into a false sense of security.
So you're making them feel confident and in control while secretly pulling the strings.
Precisely. The book uses a great example from the life of the American financier Asbury Harpending.
Okay, I'm listening.
He received a cable about a supposed diamond mine in the American West,
A diamond mine.
and at first he dismissed it as a joke.
Was it a joke?
It turned out to be a massive scam.
Oh, no.
But that's not the point.
What's the point?
What's important is how Harpending, despite his own intelligence and experience, was taken in by the con artists.
So how did they manage to fool him?
They played the role of naive pumpkins,
Okay.
making Harpending feel like the sophisticated worldly businessman.
Ah, so they played into his ego.
Exactly. They played into his assumptions about them, and ultimately, he fell for their trap.
Wow, so the con artists were actually master manipulators using playing a sucker to their advantage.
Exactly. They understood that people's vanity can be a powerful tool of manipulation.
That's incredible. So it's not just about playing dumb. It's about making the other person feel smart.
Precisely. It's about using their ego against them.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this principle could be used strategically. But how can we apply it in our own lives without resorting to, diamond mine scams?
Well, it's not about literal deception, of course.
Right.
It's about recognizing that sometimes playing the role of the naive or less informed party can be a powerful way to gain information or leverage.
Can you give me a more relatable example?
Sure. Imagine you're in a meeting with someone who's known for being a bit of a know-it-all.
Oh yeah, we all know that person.
Instead of challenging them directly, you could pretend to be impressed by their knowledge, asking seemingly naive questions that encourage them to reveal more than they intended.
Oh, so you're playing dumb to get them to spill the beans.
Exactly. You're stroking their ego while secretly gathering intelligence.
I like it. Or what if you're negotiating a deal and you suspect the other party is trying to pull a fast one?
That's a perfect example.
Instead of calling them out, you might feign ignorance, allowing them to underestimate you and potentially make a mistake that works to your advantage.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You're using their arrogance as a weapon against them.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. I never would have thought that playing dumb could be so powerful.
It's a counterintuitive concept, but one that has been used effectively throughout history.
This deep dive is full of surprises.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I am. What other fascinating insights into power dynamics do we have time for today?
Let's shift gears and talk about the power of taking decisive action.
Okay, I'm all for that.
The book calls it interaction with boldness.
I love the sound of that interaction with boldness. It's like a superhero catchphrase.
It does have a nice ring to it, right?
It does. But isn't boldness risky? What if you make a mistake?
Of course, there's always a risk involved in taking action.
Right.
But the book argues that hesitation and timidity are far more dangerous in the long run.
Really?
When you act boldly, you project confidence and decisiveness.
Even if you're not entirely sure of the outcome.
Exactly. It's about creating that perception of strength and certainty.
So it's better to act decisively even if there's a chance of failure than to hesitate and appear weak.
Precisely. The book emphasizes that mistakes made through boldness are often easier to correct than those made through timidity.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way.
It's about momentum. When you hesitate, you lose momentum.
And you give your opponents time to react, to plan their counter moves.
Exactly, but boldness can catch them off guard.
It's like they're not expecting you to make such a bold move, so they're not prepared for it.
Precisely, boldness can be incredibly disarming
It can shift the power dynamic in your favor.
and create opportunities that wouldn't exist if you had hesitated.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal of boldness, but I'm also someone who likes to think things through carefully.
I understand.
How do you balance boldness with strategic thinking?
That's a great question. It's not about being reckless or impulsive.
Right.
The book emphasizes that boldness should be combined with strategic thinking, not just blind action.
So it's about calculated risk-taking.
Exactly. Knowing when to seize the moment and when to hold back.
It's about finding that sweet spot between intuition and planning courage
Yep.
and calculation.
That's a great way to put it.
Do you have any historical examples of this principle in action?
Oh, absolutely. The book highlights the legendary magician and escape artist Harry Houdini.
Oh, Houdini. He
Yes.
was the epitome of boldness.
He was. He was known for his daring feats, his seemingly impossible escapes from death-defying situations.
How did he manage to pull off those incredible stunts?
It was a combination of skill practice and, of course, unwavering boldness.
He didn't let fear hold him back.
Not at all. He embraced the challenge
And he understood the power of showmanship.
of creating an aura of confidence and control that made his audiences believe in the impossible.
So he was more than just a magician. He was a master of presentation and psychological manipulation.
Absolutely. He understood that his success depended not just on his physical abilities, but on his ability to project an image of fearlessness and mastery.
That's amazing. I'm starting to see how boldness can be more than just a personality trait. It can be a powerful tool for achieving your goals.
Exactly. It's about pushing past your fears, embracing challenges, and projecting an image of confidence that inspires others and disarms your opponents.
Okay, this deep dive is officially blowing my mind. I'm feeling incredibly inspired to be bolder in my own life.
That's great to hear.
What other gems of wisdom have we got from these sources?
Let's step back in time and explore the art of playing the perfect courtier.
The perfect courtier. That sounds intriguing, but isn't the idea of a courtier a bit outdated? I mean, we don't live in a royal court anymore.
That's true, but the principles of courtiership are still incredibly relevant today.
Really? How so?
It's about mastering the art of navigating complex social hierarchies and wielding influence subtly.
Okay, I can see how that would be useful in the corporate world.
Exactly, or in politics or even in your personal life.
So what does it mean to be a perfect courtier in the 21st century?
It's about understanding the unspoken rules of the game and knowing how to play them to your advantage.
So it's like a combination of social intelligence and strategic thinking.
Exactly. The perfect courtier is both charming and cunning, likable and strategic.
That sounds like a difficult balance to strike.
It is, but the rewards can be great.
Like what?
Well, the perfect courtier can rise to the top of any organization or social circle.
They're the ones who always seem to know the right people and say the right things.
Precisely. They're masters of social navigation.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal. But isn't there a danger of becoming too focused on playing the game?
There is. You don't want to lose sight of your own values and principles.
Right, you don't want to become a manipulative schemer.
Exactly. The key is to find a balance between authenticity and strategy.
So it's about being genuine in your interactions while also understanding the unspoken rules of the game.
Precisely. The perfect courtier is not a phony.
They're just really good at playing the social game.
Exactly. They understand that relationships are everything.
This concept of the perfect courtier is really resonating with me. What other insights can we glean from this law?
Well, the book also highlights the importance of self-observation.
Self-observation.
It's not enough to be able to read other people.
Okay.
You also need to be able to read yourself.
What do you mean?
The perfect courtier is constantly monitoring their own behavior, asking themselves, am I being too obsequious? Am I coming across as desperate? Am I revealing too much?
So it's about being self-aware and understanding how you're being perceived by others.
Exactly. It's not just about what you do, it's about how you do it.
And it's not just about avoiding blunders.
Yeah.
It's also about consciously crafting your image to project the qualities that will win you favor and influence.
Precisely. The perfect courtier understands that image is everything.
So it's about being strategic about your self-presentation.
Exactly. They know how to dress, how to speak, and how to carry themselves in a way that commands respect and inspires admiration.
Okay, this is giving me a whole new perspective on social interactions. I feel like I need to start taking notes on how to up my courtier game.
I think that's a great idea. These principles, though rooted in the world of royal courts, offer valuable insights into the dynamics of power and influence that are still at play today.
I completely agree. This deep dive is full of timeless wisdom.
And we're not done yet. There's still more to come.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's next on our deep dive into the art of influence?
Let's dive into a concept that might raise a few eyebrows. Creating a cult.
Creating a cult. Ooh, that sounds a bit intense. Should we be taking notes on this?
Well, I think it's important to approach this topic with a discerning eye.
Right, of course. We're not endorsing the creation of cults.
Of course not. But we are going to analyze the methods used to build a devoted following, both ethically and unethically.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
Yeah.
So we're going to dissect the tactics of cult leaders and see how they manage to create such intense loyalty and devotion.
Exactly. We're going to look at both the dark side and the light side of this concept.
The light side of cults. I'm not sure I'm following you.
Well, think about it. There are certain groups, especially those focused on personal growth or spiritual development, that utilize some of these cult-like techniques to create a strong sense of community and shared purpose.
So it's not always about manipulation and control.
Exactly. It's about understanding the techniques and discerning the motivations behind them.
Okay, I'm ready to dive in. What kind of historical...
Historical examples can give us insight into this concept of the magnetic cult leader.
Yeah, I'm ready to hear more about how these leaders build such devoted followings, especially knowing that some of the techniques can be used ethically too.
Well, the book uses the example of Franz Mesmer, the 18th century figure we talked about earlier, who developed those theories about animal magnetism.
Oh, yeah.
While his scientific claims were ultimately debunked, he was incredibly successful at building a loyal following around his ideas.
Right. And you mentioned earlier that he was a master showman.
He was?
So did he use that to his advantage?
Absolutely.
How so?
Mesmer was a master of theatricality. He understood the power of presentation and used suggestive language, dramatic demonstrations, and the energy of the crowd to create a sense of excitement and belonging.
So it wasn't just about the ideas themselves.
Right.
It was about the way he presented them.
Exactly.
Like a stage performance.
Precisely. He created a cult of personality, drawing people in with the allure of mystery and the promise of transformation.
That's pretty powerful stuff. So how do we distinguish between a charismatic leader who's genuinely trying to help people and one who's exploiting them for their own gain?
That's the million-dollar question. It's about being discerning and looking beyond the surface.
Right.
The book highlights some warning signs.
What are they?
A leader who demands unquestioning loyalty, isolation from outside influences, and a rigid belief system that discourages critical thinking.
So it's about trusting your gut and being wary of anyone who claims to have all the answers.
Exactly. It's about maintaining your own sense of agency and not letting yourself be swept up in the fervor of the group.
Okay, that's good advice. I'm starting to see how this deep dive into historical power dynamics is giving us valuable tools for navigating the complexities of our modern world.
I agree. These examples provide a framework for understanding human behavior and the subtle ways that power operates.
This has been an incredible journey so far.
It has.
What else can we glean from these historical insights?
Next, we'll explore the power of controlled timing, which emphasizes that time itself can be a strategic weapon.
Oh, yeah. I remember we touched on this concept earlier with the story of Queen Tamiris.
Right.
She used controlled timing to defeat Cyrus the Great, right?
Exactly. She understood that timing is everything.
Yeah.
She lured him into a trap, waited for the perfect moment to strike, and ultimately turned his haste against him.
That was such a clever strategy. But how can we apply this principle in our everyday lives?
Well, the principle of controlled timing applies to all sorts of situations.
Okay, like what?
Think about negotiations, business deals, even personal relationships.
I'm listening.
By controlling the tempo, by knowing when to act quickly and when to be patient, you can influence the outcome.
Can you give me a more concrete example?
Sure. Imagine you're in a high-stakes negotiation and the other party is pushing for a quick decision.
Been there.
Instead of caving to the pressure, you might strategically slow down the process.
Why would you do that?
It gives you time to gather more information, consider your options, and potentially shift the power dynamic in your favor.
Ah, so you're using time to your advantage.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It's about understanding that haste can be your enemy.
Right. Sometimes it's better to slow things down.
Exactly. Sometimes the most powerful move is to wait, to observe, and to strike at the opportune moment.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to decision making.
That's great. It's all about being more strategic.
I'm usually someone who likes to act quickly and decisively,
I hear you.
but I'm starting to see the value of patience and strategic timing.
It's about finding the right balance.
Right.
Sometimes swift action is necessary, but other times a more deliberate and calculated approach can be more effective.
This deep dive is full of surprising insights.
I know, right? It's all about challenging your assumptions.
What other fascinating concepts are we going to explore today?
Let's shift gears and talk about a strategy that's all about self-belief and projecting an aura of confidence.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
The book calls it the strategy of the crown.
Strategy of the crown. That sounds pretty regal.
It does,
Does this involve wearing a crown and demanding everyone address me as Your Highness?
Not quite, but it does involve cultivating a sense of unwavering self-belief
Okay,
and projecting an image of authority and confidence that inspires others to believe in you.
so it's about tapping into your inner strength and letting it shine outward?
Precisely. The book argues that projecting an aura of confidence and authority can be incredibly persuasive,
It makes people believe in you.
even if you're not entirely sure of yourself.
So it's like, fake it till you make it.
In a way, yes. But it's not about being arrogant or delusional. It's about cultivating genuine self-belief, even if you have to start by acting as if you already possess the qualities you aspire to.
I can see how that would work. Confidence is contagious.
It really is.
When you believe in yourself, others are more likely to believe in you too.
Absolutely. And the book emphasizes that this strategy of the crown is particularly effective for those seeking to achieve ambitious goals.
That makes sense. If you're going to aim high, you need to have the confidence to back it up.
Absolutely. And there's another crucial element to this strategy.
What's that?
It's not just about inner belief, it's also about outward projection.
Okay.
The book highlights the importance of regal bearing, of acting with dignity and composure even under pressure.
So it's about projecting an image of authority and control.
Precisely. The book argues that this is essential for maintaining the illusion of the crown.
I see. So it's about creating an aura of power that commands respect and inspires confidence.
Exactly.
But wouldn't that make you seem distant and unapproachable?
It can. But a certain degree of distance can actually enhance your aura of power. It makes you seem more mysterious, more in control.
That's an interesting point. So it's about finding the right balance between confidence and approachability.
Exactly. It's a delicate dance, but one that can be mastered with practice and self-awareness.
Okay, I'm getting the sense that there's a lot of nuance to this strategy of the crown.
There is.
Are there any historical examples of how this works in practice?
The book uses the example of Christopher Columbus.
Oh, yeah. Columbus.
He relentlessly pursued his vision of sailing west despite setbacks and skepticism.
It must have been hard to convince people to believe in his vision.
It was. He was turned down by multiple monarchs, ridiculed by experts, and faced with constant setbacks.
But he never gave up.
He didn't. He had an unshakable belief in his vision, even when all the evidence pointed to the contrary.
Wow. So his self-belief was really the key to his success.
It was a major factor. His unwavering confidence inspired others to believe in him and his vision.
That's an incredible story. It seems like the strategy of the crown is all about harnessing the power of self-belief and using it to inspire others.
Exactly. It's about understanding that our beliefs shape our reality.
Wow, that's deep.
And when we believe in ourselves, we create the conditions for success.
This has been an absolutely incredible deep dive.
It has.
We've explored so many fascinating concepts.
I know.
Overbearing predecessors, the art of banishment, unlocking hearts, the allure of surrender, magnetic cult leaders, the power of timing, the strategy of the crown, and the fascinating world of mirror effects.
We've covered a lot of ground.
I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of power dynamics.
I'm glad to hear that.
I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by all this information, but in a good way. Like my mind has been stretched and expanded.
I think that's a natural reaction. The
Yeah.
key takeaway is that power is not some fixed entity,
Up.
but a fluid and dynamic force that is constantly being negotiated and redefined.
So it's not about who has the most power,
Right.
but about who can most effectively wield it.
Exactly. And the strategies and principles we've discussed today from ancient times to the modern era offer a glimpse into the art of wielding power effectively.
Whether you're seeking to advance your career, build stronger relationships, or simply navigate the complexities of human interaction with greater awareness and skill.
That's it.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey through the world of power and influence. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep wielding your influence wisely.
See you next time.